I want to move right now to the importance of testing and also itinerize. You know, we spent some time on this morning, and the reason is that you probably haven't heard this before. But the point is when you're quantifying and taking an approach that everything has to have a certain element of cost to it, and that cost has to be contained. And those that come from backgrounds in manufacturing, I'm certainly speaking a language that they've already heard before. When you think in that mindset and that approach to business, you can now systematically grow the business. And if you ask yourself that question, how can I double profitability this month? It's going to force you to think about the aspects and the steps that you have to take, step by step, when they have to be done, how many hours they're going to take to do that. Is this helpful to you? Some of you seem like you're stunned by this. It's overwhelming. No, really, does this demystify some of the confusion you've had about how businesses grow? That's the wonderful, safe thing about this business, is that when you quantify results, step by step, you know what's working and what isn't. And you can put your finger on the pulse and fix the screw up real quick. If you don't have those types of systems or that type of approach in your mind, it's hard to approach the problems. You have no idea what the problems are. So it gets back to looking at each component and being analytical about it, and then realizing how much cost can I take and afford to take for this particular aspect of my business. And oh, my costs are now up 30% on this element. So it's not a surprise at the end of the month when you look at your profitability. Oh my gosh. I mean, in our company, we do weekly cash flows, and you know, they're very specific. We know each line item and what it's going to cost, and we try to forecast it out so that we know what we need to have as far as cash requirements. So if you're wondering how do you build a business to 250 people or 500 people or 2,000 people, well, it's making sure that your costs are contained throughout. And I know that for some of you that have an aversion to accountancy and going through any type of accounting, this is extremely important in business. And if you don't have someone, if you don't have those capabilities, find someone. Find someone, because they'll help you keep yourself on course. But always make sure that you ask yourself the question, how do I double my business monthly? You know, you probably heard me say the saying before that a lot of people are getting ready to get ready. It's real easy to deal with reality avoidance items. You know, we've got to go talk to the attorney and the accountant and rent the space and get the business license. And, you know, I'm going to get my merchant account set up and I got to check with the manufacturer. And 5 months later, you haven't done a thing. It's true. I mean, Mike Loria speaks to people because he's in the merchant account business, getting Visa and MasterCard and Discover and American Express accounts, which are an important element because, as Mark said earlier, you want to expand your options to order and give people as many options to order. And he speaks to people, and you know, they want to get a merchant account, and 6 months later, you know, they're still getting ready to get ready. I'm waiting for the articles of incorporation. I don't know if I should go sub C or sub S. You know. And it's funny, and some of you have been stuck there, and by asking yourself, how do I double my profits every month, you will force yourself, if in fact you stay on that course, to follow a strict agenda of what you need to do. I know exactly what I'm going to do between now and December 31st. I have every project itinerized, when it has to be done. And you know, a lot of times people say, well, geez, you're working really hard. Well, I have a deadline. I impose deadlines on myself. That's why sometimes I stay up for 2 or 3 days in a row. If I say we're going to have a new product out, and the manufacturer drops the ball, I'm going to tell you something. You don't want to be the manufacturer on the other end of the line, because I'm going to rip you. Because if you told me when it was going to be done, you told me what each element was going to take and when they were going to be done, and you didn't do it, you better have a darn good excuse, because it's the last time I'm ever going to order from you. And if you keep with that mindset, you're going to push yourself, but you're also going to give yourself a gauge of goals of what you need to do and a specific vision of what you need to do. Moving to the importance of testing, one of the things that we see as a common problem is people don't know what to test, or they test more than one element at a time in any campaign. And you can test almost anything, no matter what type of sale that you're making, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's using postcards or classified ads or magazines or direct mail pieces, are you using 6-page letters or 12-page letters? You can test all these elements, but you can only test them one at a time. And many people try to test 2 or 3 things at a time. Or they make one test, and then they say it doesn't work. And as we discussed a little bit earlier, the whole part of this business that's exciting is that you now know, and you have a specific guideline to go through, of what to do when something doesn't work. I want you to consider this thought. If you've ever been to a Major League Baseball game or NBA game or watched the NFL or watched professional golf on TV or whatever professional sport, just imagine, yesterday was, I think, the debut of Tiger Woods as an amateur playing golf. And they pretty much focused on him because here's this guy just coming off his third amateur win, which was incredibly exciting. Anybody see that golf tournament? It's the wildest thing. This guy has 2 holes. He's dying. I mean, after 18 holes, he's 5 down. This is Tiger Woods. He's won the U.S. Amateur twice. On the 16th and 17th hole, this guy reaches down. He makes a 30-foot birdie, to win the hole and go to the 18th hole. You knew that the guy was toast on the 18th hole. It was just a matter of time. And when he hit the 322-yard drive, I said, this guy's, he's done. But just imagine if Tiger Woods, the first day that he'd ever played golf, the first time that somebody put a golf club in his hand, he went up to the tee, he hit the ball, cranked it out of bounds, walked off the tee and said, hey, I can't do this. Or if Jack Nicklaus or Larry Bird or Magic Johnson ever done that, or Stan Smith or John McEnroe, they just had a first bad day and they said, it can't be done. Well, that's how a lot of people are in direct marketing and in business. They make one attempt, and once that one attempt doesn't work, they walk away and they say, it doesn't work. Why? Because it's easier to say it doesn't work than fix it. And I'm not chastising anyone, but I'm giving out an important point that if you follow these steps and you're patient, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when you'll make money. And there was a shortcut that I brought up a little bit earlier, but if you're constantly going out and refining what you're doing, it's a lot easier. That's why you test. How do you test? You test one element versus its counterpart at a time. For instance, the first thing that you want to do is test your headlines. You want to test one headline versus another. And coincidentally, there's some people in this room that have been in direct marketing for years, that one of the things that happens in business is you're sailing along, things are going well, and you don't test enough. We do it. There's so many things to do that we don't test all the aspects, and we know better. And so I want to make the point that despite the fact that we're preaching to you, we're also in the audience, because we're just as guilty. But we know that we should be testing other elements. For instance, right on television right now, we're going to test 3 payments at $29.95. Why? It could boost the results by 12 to 15, maybe 20%. We don't know yet. We haven't tested it. 2.5 years, and we haven't tested it. We've tested other price points, but we haven't tested a multi-pay price point. And there's some other elements to that of multi-pays, which I'll talk about later, that you have to watch out for. But the fact is you're testing one element versus another. If you have 1,000 postcards and you're sending them out, you send out 500 postcards with one headline, 500 with another. You make sure that in your tracking process, you can discern, here's headline A and here's headline B. Headline A got 22% more response than headline B. Often you'll find that headline A could get 85% or 210% more response. Now that you realize that, that's the headline that you go back to the next test with. And you might test that headline against 5 other headlines to verify and to make sure and ensure for yourself that that's the headline you're going to stick with. When someone asks a question, well, what do you do once you get to that control process? You go. You move forward. But you don't stop testing. And so you always want to refine what you're doing. If you pick up a magazine and you look for ads, you will notice that magazines, if they come out monthly or twice a month, the person will not only track the magazine, but what issue it is. Print usually has a longer life than most other mediums. Somebody 8 months later can pick up a magazine. Well, why is that important? Well, next year when you sit down and you look at the results that you've gotten from that particular publication, and you look at the cash that you want to spend on advertising, you'll find out that May is better than October. Your cost per order was lower in May. You might want to run an extra ad in that publication in May, because it had a higher return on your investment. So that's why you want to figure out not just what ad source it came from, but what time of the year, what issue. If you're doing a direct mail piece, the same thing. It's interesting to me that Hooked on Phonics, that's one that comes to my mind, and 1-800-Flowers, and Jim Palmer and 1-800-LOAN-YES. Those are vanity numbers. They're very easy to remember. They're excellent in radio. The problem that they have in television is if you're advertising on 19 advertising sources and you have a vanity number, you don't know what worked and what didn't. You're looking at the whole once again, so you have a difficulty in refinement. And so if I had one like that, I'd probably have some simple extension numbers beyond that number. I mean, 111 and 222 and extension 333. I'd do something to figure out what's working and what isn't. The whole purpose of this session and this section is to get you focused on knowing where you are, where you're going, and how to get there. And testing is just another element of quantification and seeing by making minor variations in your business, can you get major results? But I mean, I'm shocked by public companies that they have no idea. They've got a responsibility to their shareholders. They have no idea what their profits are going to be in many. I love when they go out in Reuters and they say, okay, our profits are going to go up 28%. And whoops, 90 days later, oh, we lost 38%, and the stock dives. And they wonder, oh, I don't know, we didn't know what we were doing. It's like my cousin Vinny or something. It's just amazing to me. You can tell my mentality when my cousin Vinny is on my movie list. The Utes. That was the best line ever in a movie. The Utes, Judge. But the one thing I want to push to as far as headlines and testing one headline versus another, you can use an A-B split format in many newspapers and direct mail and card decks, card packs. You can test one headline versus another. Everything else is going to be the same in the offer. The best headlines, in my opinion, and opening statements as they relate to television and radio, are headlines that give the intended benefit to the reader, viewer, or listener instantly. And they give the predominant benefit. If there's 5 benefits to a product, but 82% of the people have an appeal for the number 1 benefit, that's the benefit you take the most time with. That's the benefit that you tie into your headline. Because you found, by asking people and querying those people, why did they respond? Why did they order? What got their interest up? What problem was the most pressing? And not being a focus group of one. Hardest thing in the world is to self-analyze your own work. You don't have any objectivity. And that's what testing does, is it takes all the subjective actions that are inherent to what you do out of the game. You let the audience decide. The next thing that you don't want to do in a headline is be cute. I love ad agencies, and it's interesting to me, and I'm not going to go on I'm probably going to go on a slam of ad agencies. But ad agencies get paid to buy advertising. Everybody hear that? They get paid to buy advertising. We've been filleted by ad agencies before in direct response. And they get paid to buy advertising. We've caught ad agencies marking things up 200% on us and 150%, and we get a little upset when that happens. But the fact is when you pick up a newspaper, it infuriates me when I pick up the Wall Street Journal and I see a major computer corporation running a double truck ad, 2 full pages in the Wall Street Journal, and they've got a picture of a computer and white space, and they have one statement that's really cute. But when you meet Paul Hartoonian tomorrow afternoon, as he says, who cares? It doesn't give me any intended benefit. It doesn't tell me why I should buy that particular product. It doesn't tell me what's in it for me. Because it's a cute, stupid, amusing headline. Everybody in the office laughed. The client, who's an idiot running the public company, he went to the ad agency and says, I love it. And he's a moron too. And they have a moron fest and they all pat each other on the back, and then the stock goes down. And it's frustrating because what they're doing is they're satisfying their own ego by being amusing and cute and thinking that cute and amusing will sell. Anybody here know who sponsors the Masters Golf Tournament as an insurance company? Okay. Raise your hands. Raise your hands if you know. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. But we've got a little over 400 people. We've got 4 people. All right. Masters Golf Tournament is the most widely viewed golf tournament in the world. It's like the Indianapolis 500, the Daytona 500, the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs, Stanley Cup, Super Bowl. I mean, it's like the Super Bowl of golf. Now you think about, this company has been, by the way, sponsoring the Masters for years. They're an insurance company, okay? Now, if I had an ad during a sporting event that has millions of people tuned in, and I wanted to increase my business, it might be a good idea to put an 800 number up. I mean, yeah. Just, oh shucks, we'll put an 8, yeah. And if they just put that 800 number up, and insurance, there's certain insurances that people buy, because they have to buy, like car insurance. Except for the person that hits you. They never have car insurance. I'm driving illegal without car insurance. I just want to hit you. You look like a moron. So decided to hit you. And then there's other insurances that have to be sold, which is the majority of insurances. And by the way, the most profitable insurances have to be sold. Life insurances are insurances that have to be sold. They're also where the most profit is for life insurance companies, the most margin. But you would think that if you were sponsoring a major golf tournament, you would run an 800 number up there and get leads. Hey, for free analysis of your life insurance and estate planning plans, call this particular number. And you'll get a free information packet. But no, the chairman of a company says, that'll hurt our image. We don't want to do that because they've never tested that. And the ad agency, of course, said, you don't want to do that because then you'll know what we're doing. And so if you sit there and you wonder why most of the world's screwed up in business, in the last hour and 10 minutes, you probably figured it out. They don't know where they are. They know they're in business, they just don't know where they are within their business. And along with the fact that you don't want cute and amusing headlines, you want to direct your headline to a specific targeted audience. If you can think, just like the Tony Little example, of widening your demographic appeal through increased benefits that focus on a wider appeal, you will always be better off in direct marketing. Despite the fact there's great money to be made in niches within markets, the best products for the biggest profits and the widest distribution are products that everybody needs and everybody wants. I mean, the reason I get excited about Spiller Anderson's product is it's a major market. Just a ton of people. Tony Little was asked to do a CD-ROM endorsement and sell a CD-ROM product on QVC, and he was telling me this story. And he turned it down. The reason was is that the minority of people own CD-ROMs. So no matter how well he does, he knows going in the demographic audience is so small that's going to buy a CD-ROM that even if he captures the majority of that audience, it's still a bomb. But if you get out that specific audience in your headline, that'll certainly help you along with specific benefits. Another thing that you'll find in reading ads is you'll often find that the headline for the ad, which that's all a headline is, or an opening statement, it's the headline for the ad, it's to get the person to stop. You'll often find that headline is within the copy or the commercial and would be better off in the front of the commercial or the ad. And if you start to look at print ads, you'll see this. And I had an experience of a company who didn't even know why people bought from them. They're in direct response. Good sized company, a couple hundred employees. They didn't know. They never asked people. First question I asked was, why do people buy from you? Shucks, we don't know. Oh, okay. Well, I sent them back to work. I said, the next 200 people that call, ask them why they bought. And what they found was a benefit that they never thought was important was extremely important. And this is what gets back to is once you inspect a little bit and you turn over a lot of stones, you find things that are very, very simple that are underlined. And often those headlines are right within the ad, but they don't know that that's the biggest benefit, which appeals to the largest audience. Other things that you'll find is you can write progressive headlines. Let's say that there's 3 benefits for a product. You put all those benefits into the headline, but the biggest benefit, the one that appeals to the largest demographic audience, is first in your headline. And then the second benefit that deals, let's say that the first benefit deals with 52% of the audience, second one deals with 17%, third one deals with 8% of the total audience. You'd have the biggest benefit first in your headline, the second biggest second, and the third biggest third. Why? You've now expanded your demographic reach. If you have one benefit, you only get 52% of the people in the audience. There's no rule on how long headlines can be. However, with classified ads, it's better to have shorter headlines than longer headlines. And we'll talk about that later. But the fact is if you've got a progressive headline, you've got 3 different benefits. One has 52% of the audience captured as a benefit that causes them intrinsically to pick up the phone or mail in a check or to order. One has 17% of the people wanting to order because of that benefit. And one has 8%. You've now gone and expanded your market just by changing your headline. So the headline that got a certain response, when you add the second and third benefit, you can get 25% more response just by speaking to those people. People don't read ads, they read headlines. They don't watch television commercials, they listen to opening statements. They don't listen to radio commercials, they listen to the opening statement. I mean, if I'm selling a hair tonic or a hair shampoo, it comes out, are you bald or balding? Okay, now we know who we're talking to, or worried about balding. I'd probably throw that in because there's another audience there that no one's even addressing on those products. Are you worried about balding? Okay, that's definitely the smaller audience because they don't have the problem yet, but it brings more people into the fold and it increases the likelihood of success. Another thing that I found, and Mike McMillan has used this and validated, I wrote a headline a few years ago. It took me about 4 minutes to write after listening to a person for an hour and interviewing them. And they had a headline that was very unbelievable. And, I looked at this headline and I looked at it like a consumer and I said, well, that's unrealistic. And different people, if I went around the room and I said, define a lot of money, I'd get hundreds of different answers. I'd get hundreds of different answers. I mean, a lot of money to me is going to be different for you. A lot of money for another person is going to be different than another person. So we all have different degrees of where we fit in mentally at certain aspects of our life. So I see this headline, and it's going on the upper end. I mean, if you wrote a headline, in the Wall Street Journal, and you said, how to make $1 billion, which one's going to pull more? How to make $1 billion or how to make $1 million? The second one? Absolutely. Why? Because most people can't perceive nor conceive that they're going to be billionaires. That's a big chunk of money. I mean, Bill Gates, he could sit by the furnace with $100 bills and a shovel and shovel every day of his life, and he couldn't go through all of his money. I mean, that's how much money think about it. If you put every dollar bill back to back and you had, $12 billion, I don't know how much, what's amazing is every month or every year that Forbes comes out and names him as the richest man, he's got another 10 billion. You go, when's it going to stop, Guy's got all this money. It's just amazing. But, if you sit and think about that, people have a degree of where they fit in. If you appeal to them in their headline and you're going for the smallest demographic audience, but you think that you're really appealing to the largest demographic audience, that's where your mistake is. Everything else was right in this particular person's offer. What was wrong was they were approaching the narrowest segment of the demographic. That was an unbelievable headline to the majority of people. So all we did was gave variances to that headline. Headlines that invoke curiosity can often be very interesting, but you've got to be careful with curiosities that you're not bordering on cute. However, we're all curious, but I've found that headlines that are just curious in nature without giving an intended benefit are not as powerful. If you can promote curiosity with intended benefits and keep on testing with that in mind, you'll usually come up with a very strong control headline. You want to go out and make sure that you've identified the audience that has the problem. This gets back to what we talked about when you're placing ads and you're checking what didn't work. If you offer a specific service, product, or information to the wrong demographic audience, it's not going to work, no matter how good your ad is. I'll give you a great example. About 5 years ago, a guy sends me a product, and it's into it's a niche market. It's a senior market, and got a pretty good ad. Not a lot of problems with the ad. Pretty good headline, benefits, pretty simple and understandable on how to order. Price is pretty reasonable, and it looks pretty sensible. Then he sends me all the places where he advertised and wonders why it didn't work. And the fact is, he's going after a senior audience. And I don't know if you've noticed it, but in the last 2 years, have you noticed how many more publications are targeted towards seniors? It's a very, very large market. It's, by the way, and this might help you in focusing or thinking about certain products, the senior market has more disposable income than any market. Why? They've had more time to accumulate wealth. They're wealthier. They've got a lot of money. So we have a lot of publications that have cropped up. And because of it, they've helped to better target for the advertiser that wants to reach that market. Because up until that time, and that was where the opportunity lied for the publishers. Publishers say, hey, this is a big market. They got a lot of cash. They want to buy stuff. Why don't we target them? Because we know that advertisers trying to reach them have a problem. So we'll target them, we'll create a specific publication. We already have a built-in audience of advertisers who up until now had to advertise in advertising mediums that had a very wide audience. That's why it gets back to when you have a product that has a common problem at the heart and the core of that product, service, or information offer, you're better off because it expands the amount of places you can advertise. So if seniors are a smaller percentage of the market than the overall masses, but you're advertising in a publication, radio station, television station, direct mail, general mailer like a Carol Wright or Card Pack or something like that, then the problem that you're going to have is that you're paying for a lot of non-prospects. Make sense? Okay? So 92% of the market, they're not even close to interested in what you have to say. But you're paying to reach them. So rather than the shotgun effect, when you specifically know what the demographics are of your audience, then you focus in your advertising efforts knowing that you don't want to pay for waste. And if, in fact, you don't have a common problem, common solution type product, service, or information, and you have one specifically targeted a niche, one of the downfalls can be as to why your advertising doesn't work is you're appealing to a small segment of the audience that you're advertising to, and you're paying for those people. You are wasting money because it's not the offer, it's not the headline, it's not the price, it's not the guarantee, it's not how you order, it's where you're advertising. So when you have a specific focus of where you're advertising, who's your intended audience, and you're speaking only to that intended audience, make sure that you're not paying for people that aren't that audience. That's where the difficulty arises in marketing to certain niches and segments, is how do you get to them? And we'll go into some of those ways a little bit later, but you want to make sure that you're paying for that intended audience and you're speaking specifically to them. Headlines with a strong, compelling promise. Earlier this morning, we talked about everybody dissipating the result of the guarantee, which was also a headline, which we're going to go over an ad in just a moment here, which is a great ad. Everybody that's been, well, a lot of you were just on airlines and you saw this ad if you were reading any direct response ads, which coincidentally, those of you when you're traveling, and no matter what you're doing, one of the sicknesses that's going to result as a result of going through this is you're going to become extremely conscious of all advertising. You are. It's going to become like a hobby. Mike's nodding, and Greg, he's been through it, and a lot of guys that I talk to and women that I talk to, they've been through it. But you start to realize that all these little fundamental things, this isn't magic. For those of you that came and wondered and said, gosh, it's magic, LEDs. No, it isn't. We're trying to unravel piece by piece all this stuff. One of the reasons, I have a love-hate relationship with doing this. Love to see everybody, love to meet them. I hate preparing for them, and by the time Monday comes around, I'm going to be exhausted. I'm going to be beaten. I know that. And that's why I don't like looking, that's the one negative that I hate about this, is I'm going to be beat. And it takes a lot of preparation. As you can see, we didn't just flip a switch and go, hey, what do you think? Oh, let's do something, all right? There's a lot of stuff going on here. There's a lot of people involved with it. But when you sit down and realize that in a particular headline, if you've got a strong, compelling promise within that headline of the intended benefit, and also the time that it takes and the ease to do it, just like all these ab offers, you're going to lose 10 inches and you're going to lose 4 inches and 10 pounds in 30 days. Well, that particular headline or promise or guarantee, and it could have been a headline, started to get diluted because everybody used it. But at the same time, when it first came out, it was very powerful. Gave the intended benefit, it told when, and it was easy. 30-day money-back guarantee kind of falls. Everybody has a 30-day money-back guarantee. I mean, just about everybody has a guarantee. Some people have, all different types of lengths of guarantees, but when somebody ties something in where they guarantee the performance and they're specific about the guarantee, that's why that particular guarantee worked. Lose 10 pounds in 10 days, guaranteed, or you owe us nothing. That's a specific guarantee, time frame, tells you when it's going to happen, when it's going to occur, and also the refund policy.